And so we really just stopped thinking about ourselves as just a meal provider, which has been the history of our century of service in the Northland, and started thinking about how can we design centralized services and help with the housing shortage.
Welcome to Forward, presented by Story North. On this show, we document architects, the builders, and the visionaries who are shaping the future of northeastern Minnesota. I'm your host, Kevin Jacobson. My guest today is facing a math problem that terrifies most leaders. She is staring down a 150% increase in homelessness over the last decade against a backdrop of a 1% housing vacancy rate. The old models are breaking under the weight of the new reality. She is leading a 100-year-old institution through a complete systemic reinventing, moving from a legacy shelter model to a modern mission engagement center. Katie Hagglund is the executive director of the Union Gospel Mission in Duluth. Katie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Katie, you've said the current response system is severely outdated. When you look at the machinery of how we help people here in the Northland, where specifically would you say it's breaking?
Well, I think the biggest piece is the increase, like you mentioned, in chronic homelessness. And that's not just a statistic, that's people who are living outside for years. And I think the perception is that if folks just try harder, they can get into housing. But when you have a 1% vacancy rate with housing, it's impossible to find a house. And so what we're finding is that folks are no longer just kind of falling into this system and then getting back out. They're getting stuck in it. And so we're struggling to keep up with the demand that our community is facing when everything is working against the people that we're serving.
Union Gospel Mission has been a pillar here for over a century. That's a lot of history to carry. How do you honor that legacy while giving yourself permission to completely reinvent the model? Because the old map clearly doesn't fit the new territory.
No, it doesn't. And, I didn't wake up one day and say, like, I want to run a homelessness nonprofit. But the longer that I've done this work, I've just begun to appreciate that the moment that somebody walks through our doors at the mission is so sacred. They're coming to us in their arguably biggest time of need. And so it's really important that we be here and we show up in whatever way they need us to. And so for me, it was really intentional when I joined the mission that I took my ego off the table and said, I don't know what others need for us to be effective. And just because the mission has been doing this work for this long doesn't mean we're doing it perfectly or doing it right. And so I spent a lot of time with our guests, with the community, with fellow leaders and nonprofits, and just try to start to understand and appreciate all aspects of what's happening here with our homeless response system. And I think it gave me the opportunity to have kind of the experience of growing up in Duluth and understanding and appreciating Duluth and caring so deeply about Duluth, but also having a bit of like a fresh lens to say, this could look differently. And if we're all willing to come to the table and kind of align around this goal of doing better, what can we do to do better? And so, I was just really fortunate to be given the opportunity and for folks to allow me to come in and ask questions, and then also to hear what I had to say and kind of be open to me just saying sometimes the things that maybe hadn't been said for a really long time. And so, I think why now is just because we're all aligned, the city, the county, our nonprofit community, business leaders, and we all see that the old way wasn't working. And so that kind of alignment doesn't happen often. And when it does, you just have to move. So I'm just fortunate to be in the driver's seat here at the mission, but we've got a lot of people in that vehicle with us.
And that vehicle is moving toward a mission engagement center, consolidating resources under one roof. That's a massive logistical and cultural shift. So Why would you say that consolidation was the only way forward? And what does this new model solve that old scattered approach couldn't?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is if you come down to downtown, it's not difficult to see folks having to navigate across the entire community to access just basic resources. And I think for a long time, our nonprofits have been reactive to what is needed. And it, with our project, we really want to be intentional and design a system that makes sense for this moment, but also has opportunity to grow and help in whatever way or capacity we need. And so we really just stopped thinking about ourselves as just a meal provider, which has been the history of our century of service in the Northland, and started thinking about how can we design centralized services and help with the housing shortage so that people have the opportunity to just focus on their stability and accessing resources in one space rather than worry about how am I going to get everything I own from this building to that building so that I can make this one appointment. And so taking some of the weight off of what is a very difficult system to navigate just felt so logical. And it was designed not again just by our own assumptions, but with the input from our guests. And so something we heard a lot from them is just that frustration of having to move around all day long, just to be able to make one appointment and then not have things met, not be able to take a shower that day because they had to be across town. And so it allowed us to really view ourselves as the guinea pig for let's put everything in one place and what could that look like. And so we're really focused on meeting the moment. And I think we've done things this way in our community for a very long time. And obviously, it's not working anymore. So we have to get creative. We have to think differently. And throughout that whole process, the Mission Engagement Center is really where we landed. So it was really designed with a lot of input from all folks and all walks of life.
Katie, we had the opportunity to tell the Union Gospel Mission story with Story North last year. And I think along the conversations there, we talked about how currently the Union Gospel Mission serves over 300 guests per mealtime.
Mm-hmm.
How do you ensure that the 300th person in line feels just as seen and dignified as the first person who comes in?
Yeah, I think that the biggest component to that is really about the team here at the mission. And so I have tried really hard to surround myself by fellow leaders within my own team. So we have really clear roles. We have built stronger systems internally because, you know, if your team is burned out, your mission's not going to survive. And so for us, it's really about supporting the team so that we can show up for the people that need us to show up. And so, the only true expectation I have for my staff is that we can kind of check our own needs at the door when we're here in the workplace, and so that we can focus and be here for the people that need us most. Because at the end of the day, we all are fortunate enough to be able to go home. We're all fortunate enough to be able to take a shower when we get there, to be able to watch TV and watch what we want to watch and have whatever we want to eat. And that's not the experience for a majority of the folks that we work with daily. And so when you see that day in and day out, and when you're leaving work and you have folks telling you to be safe on your drive home when you know they're about to sleep in a tent outside, it's a very humbling experience. And it makes it a lot easier to show up for that 301st person.
Sure, sure. Let's look 5 years down the road, Katie. The new center is built, the system has shifted. Walk us through the experience of a guest walking through those doors. How is their reality different than it would be today?
Yeah, I think what we're building is a system where somebody can come to us still for that meal. And what they'll find within that space is also a soft space just to rest, a space that has access directly to case management providers on site, that has access to healthcare services right there. So if you're needing wound care, you don't have to try to travel and find it. It will be right there. Um, it will have access to those showers, those laundry units, and whatever else, challenges that come along. It's really being designed to accommodate for all of that, including just simple things like phone charging stations, and we're in building in and incorporating kind of a mental health room that allows for somebody that's maybe just had a tough night or having a tough day that needs a little bit of space. When you don't have your own home, it's hard to find that little bit of space. And so we'll have that space at the new engagement center that folks can just take a step away and recharge their own battery with the support of the team surrounding them. So it's really triaging people in their moment of need and also connecting them to resources so that they can continue on and regain that stability with whatever providers or services that get them there. Everybody's journey looks different, but I think ultimately our goal is, in 3 years' time, that you're going to see fewer people sleeping outside and not just displaced or pushed to somewhere else, but housed. And you're going to see businesses and nonprofit providers that feel like they're not on opposite teams, like we're all in this work together, and now we have a space that we
Right.
can send people to, and we can trust that they're going to get the support that they need. And I think, in 3 years, I hope this is not as, I hope it's less controversial, and more obvious. I
Mm.
hope that we can all look back and be like, of course, this is how we should have been doing it. And so that's really what our goal is with this design, is to show up for this community, show up for the people we serve. And if I'm being honest, I do this work because I want my kids to grow up in a community that doesn't look away. I want them to see that when something is hard, you show up. You don't turn the other way. When you see poverty or addiction or tension in your community, you don't retreat. You kind of lean in. So at the mission, that's what we're doing. We're leaning in.
Love that. Katie, you talked about how everybody's journey is different. And so you sit at tables with policymakers, funders, who don't necessarily see what you see on a daily basis.
Mhm.
What have you learned about using your voice to translate the gritty reality of what you're seeing into language that actually is able to shift regional policy?
I think that's been an obstacle for me for sure, is just trying to share, data is important, and we collect a lot of that here at the mission so that we have the facts to go along with the stories. But storytelling is certainly what motivates people, I think, the most. And so I am, again, fortunate to be in a position where I get to hear people's stories. I get to walk with them, and peripherally experience the obstacles that prevent them from stability, that keep them limited. And it's my job to be able to effectively relay what that experience is like for others. And so, I personally have had the opportunity also to be able to use my own story. I come from a family where I am one generation away from being a guest of Union Gospel Mission, as opposed to the executive director of Union Gospel Mission. And so, I grew up in a home with somebody that experienced homelessness. And that is, I think, something that has allowed me to have that personal connection, that personal tie-in, to be able to show that this is not a them and us. These are our friends, these are our family members, these are our loved ones, these are our neighbors, and it's my responsibility to tell their stories
And lean into that.
and lean into that.
Wow. To take this region's response system from where we are today to where we need to be, Katie, what is the one bold move we need to make to truly move forward?
Um, Trust. I think we need to trust that we are headed in the right path. I think again, I feel that we are all aligning across these different sectors that have never really all worked together to solve this problem. And so, this isn't just about services and housing and the Mission Engagement Center. This is about trusting one another that we want to work towards a solution and we want better for our community. And so that's the work, is just showing up in the spaces, having the tough conversations, and trusting one another that we all want something better. So that's what my big ask is ultimately. Obviously there's money attached to all of those things, and I would be not great at my job if I didn't mention, we need that support as well. We need people to continue to show up for the mission as they have for the last 100 years. But trust.
Got it. Katie, that's it for our conversation. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
At Story North, we believe that the most important work in our region is often the hardest to explain. If you're leading an organization through that kind of complexity, where the mission is critical but the message is getting lost in the noise, that is where we come in. We don't just capture the work, we help you architect the narrative that scales it. You can find the full show notes and the video version of this conversation at storynorthproductions.com. Until next time.